Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to the Good Trouble Show. Super glad everybody is here today, and as my prompter decides to do its own thing. Anyway, super excited. Hope everyone had a wonderful time during their holidays and a very happy New Year. I know that I think everyone is hoping we have an even better 2026 in terms of the whole UAP disclosure effort. And so our guest today, he is a professor of pathology at Stanford University School of Medicine. He earned his degrees in biology and genetics from Cornell and Stanford, trained with Nobel laureate David Baltimore, and has published over 350 scientific papers. I mean, you think about that in and of itself, it's pretty impressive. He also happens to have over 50 patents. A leading immunologist and biotech entrepreneur, he invented powerful tools for studying cells, founded several successful companies, and has recently been analyzing unusual materials and biological effects linked to UAP sightings. He is the co-founder of the Soul Foundation, one of the places I absolutely love to go every year for their conferences. Please welcome Dr. Garry Nolan. Garry, how are you? We're off to a rip-roaring start.
Great. Well, hello, everybody, and Happy New Year as well, and thanks for the invitation.
You're very, very welcome. I think this is like your third or fourth time on the show, but how are your holidays, and what kind of trouble did you get into on New Year's Eve?
Actually, we were in bed by around 10:30. I've done all-night raves, etc., party boats, you name it. Not that my party days are past. I mean, geez, I went to Mykonos to the big end of summer party there with a bunch of friends and 5,000 guys, and that was a lot of fun. So I'm not beyond a good party, but it was nice to just have some time alone with my husband and friends. We went over to the next door neighbors here for a little bit of the evening. So it was nice. Very nice.
Excellent. Did you make any sort of good New Year's Eve resolutions that you'll be sticking to?
My God, we'll see. Well, it's the same one every year. Go back to the gym, which I do. I think, let's just sort of circle immediately to the UAP thing. It's doubled down on doing what's important and not get distracted by what's not, by people or efforts attempting to distract because they feel that they need attention. And so because you never get anything done by not focusing. It's important, I think. So that's what it is, for me at least. I mean, literally in 5 days, I am 65 years old.
Wow.
So January 8th. So, the clock begins to tick in your head. It's not that I don't feel like I've accomplished things. It's more that I still have things that I want to do. And it's not just about me. It's about what can I do for others to either pass on whatever I've learned personally or what I've learned from others that I think are worthy of consideration by the field at large. And that's, for me, frankly, it's just how to do science. That's what I've done for the last 40 years.
And we're going to get into it. I have to say, probably my only New Year's Eve resolution is to lose the 8 pounds that I gained over the holidays. So that's where I'm starting. But folks, before we jump into it fully with Dr. Nolan, let's talk about the show. So he will be taking questions from all of us, all of you watching right now. So just drop your questions into the chat. But do it in all caps, and our Good Trouble Show moderators they'll compile the questions and we'll hand them off to Dr. Nolan. And then also later in the program, we have a surprise for the audience. Dr. Garry Nolan, as you have never seen him before, and that's going to be fun. But first thing I want to jump into is exactly, is this whole narrative thing, and when it comes to the UAP issue. As everyone knows, this topic has been labeled as fringe. I mean, really, if you think about it from the very beginning, and sort of purposefully labeled as fringe. Is the UAP narrative changing in both the general public realm and the scientific academic realm? And if you think it has, why?
Oh, I certainly think it has, without doubt. I mean, it began certainly, or took off with Leslie Kane's and Blumenthal's article in the New York Times, subject to Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon's help getting the videos out the door, and of course the many brave pilots and whistleblowers such as David Grush as well, who and who've come forward to talk about it. But I think it's important for everybody to realize that, unfortunately, at this stage, these are all still anecdotes. I mean, well, the videos are not anecdotes,
of course.
That's for sure. But many of the anecdotes, such as what came out from Dan Farah's Age of Disclosure, and the story that James Fox has told about the events in Brazil and what I understand to be things that will be coming. I don't know anything more than what James has been saying publicly. I think those continue to keep my interest, and they keep the interest of the public. I mean, just look at what Dan Farah's film has done. It went to #1, not just for a week, for all time, for a downloaded program. So, and of course, we know that Steven Spielberg has something coming out. So there's a drumbeat. I don't think that proves anything, but what I think it proves is that there's an acceptance for the matter that has changed, I think, the posture of those who were what I'm just going to just term them pseudo-skeptics. They're now the ones on the defensive. I mean, they just seem to be screeching louder and louder. You've got the likes of the Wall Street Journal and the others, and thank you very much for your efforts, Matt, sort of getting the news out that this attempt was coming. It certainly forewarned me, and I was able to, as the last couple of days, I put up that notice that I'd gotten from somebody at the Wall Street Journal asking for my help, and I was like, in no uncertain terms, will I talk to you? What I should have done was sent the analysis I had done of everything that was wrong with the last thing that they had done, and said, well, when you write an article publicly disclaiming what you said before and admitting what you did wrong, then maybe I'll talk to you.
Right.
I mean, see, what's interesting is that they expect, for instance, me, everything that I say, or everything that Avi says, or everything that Kevin Newth says, or everything that Matt Sigdalis or many others say. Everything we say has to be right. And if we say one thing wrong, then, that just discredits everything.
Yeah.
But when they make 1,000 mistakes, they just change the subject, right? And they're allowed to keep coming back. So I think the posture has changed. They're the ones, at least as far as I'm concerned, I'm like, they don't matter. I get stopped in airports now by people saying, thank you very much.
That's
I
awesome.
I notice people thanking me, which is it's all very nice.
Mm-hmm.
But even my scientific colleagues, look, I still get invited to give big talks. I'm helping the National Cancer Institute design a new strategy forward for tumor immunology and actually using artificial intelligence. I'm invited here or there. I'm about to get a big award that'll be announced soon. And what people want to hear is not just the science, but then they always say, hey, Garry, tell us a little bit about that other stuff that you're known for.
Of course, the fun stuff.
I was invited to, Richard Branson's Island a few months back with a bunch of friends to talk about cancer and AI, but they wanted me, part of it, to talk about UAP.
I love that.
And Richard Branson was there in the audience.
Wow.
And it was fun. And I think I made a slight mistake in saying I can be bribed with martini if you really want to know what's going on. And for the next several days at this very nice place, I was, showered with offers of martinis.
Wow.
It was
Okay.
nice. I only drank a couple.
Of course. I want to jump back and talk about evidence. And, I'm not a scientist. To be honest, I failed college physics and many other things. I think I was too busy chasing girls and drinking beer to pay attention in college, unfortunately. But back in 2023, the former director of AARO, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, stated, quote, "AARO has found no credible evidence thus far of extraterrestrial activity, off-world technology, or objects that defy the known laws of physics." Then in 2024, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick version 2, or who I like to call Dr. John Kozlowski, stated, quote, "Today, AARO has not discovered any verifiable evidence of extraterrestrial beings, activity, or technology." What do you say to that? And then do you think that the specific use of the word extraterrestrial is sort of, some kind of cute wordsmanship?
Well, I certainly think that there's some very careful legalistic framing that's going on. Susan Goff has done so. And I know our friend, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking, Chris Sharp from the
Liberation
UK,
Times.
Liberation Times, has pointed out when he, I think, wrote to her asking for, would you like to alter what it is that you have to say about, and her answer was no, we're going to keep it the same. So, look, I don't know why they're doing that. Because at the same time as they say we found no credible evidence, evidence is either evidence or not. It's like, is the data credible, not is the evidence credible? Because to say is evidence credible is to question the underlying data. Evidence is only a truth or, let's say, supportive of a hypothesis or a conclusion in the context of the conclusion of the hypothesis or a question. So it's an interesting lack of understanding, even on the part of AARO, of what the terminology means. And so I think by doing that, they unfortunately, and I'd love for them to be good about it, they just discredit their own scientific underpinnings. But then at the same time, they will publish a list of God knows how many things that they can't explain. They'll put out pictures of spheres moving around, like the one in Mosul. And then openly state that we see many of these things. Phillips gets out and says some pretty interesting things as well.
He's a Star Trek fan, that's for sure.
And, and he was involved deeply with AARO too. So, it's kind of, they're talking out of both sides of their mouths.
Right.
And I think it's an indication of the internal struggle that might be going on inside the government. As to, what is it should we say? When should we say it? Look, I would love for them just to truthfully tell me it's all rubbish, and then open the books so that I can validate that is all rubbish.
Right.
But because they won't open the books, and because everything that they put out, as I think Greenwald of the Black Vault has shown, it ends up getting redacted to hell.
Right.
I have my differences with Greenwald every once in a while.
Me too.
But the truth of the matter, he's done an enormously positive job collecting data and making it available for everybody and hounding them with Freedom of Information Act requests. So, kudos to him. I don't hold grudges, except against a couple of people, I guess. But it's just not worth it. Because I think whether it's somebody's intention or not, the divisions that happen within any community, whether it's UAP or anything, are certainly not helpful. And we should always be looking for commonalities of purpose and goal, and not personality. That's just my opinion. But
Sure. Yeah, no, I completely understand. One of the things that we've had quite a few sources tell us is that Arrow has made limited offers to a couple, three people to financially support their scientific work on the UAP issue. And I think that these are probably folks that would be safe to say, are developing sensor technology, sensor fusion technology. Do you think that there is an inherent danger with getting into bed with Arrow if you are a scientific organization? And I'll also say I look at anyone that were to take this offer, I would not look at it in a judgmental way. I mean, research takes money, running organizations takes money, nothing in life is free. But what are the inherent risks of the scientists and other organizations partnering with Arrow?
So, I mean, I agree with you that if they have the resources, that should be attractive. But there should be a legal framework set up around the use of the data. If they're going to provide me with money for sensors, let's say, then I will give them first choice to look at it, but I will not give them the right to wantonly prevent me from using it in a publication. Unless it's like, well, that's obviously something of ours, Gary, and we don't need anybody to know what it is. But they can't claim methods and approaches when it's a technique that I developed,
right,
to look at something. And so I think you just have to look at it as a double-edged sword, and not allow secrecy agreements to prevent you from doing things. I mean, look, I have, I guess, still a TS, but it was never really used appropriately or enough. And so I hold no deep, dark secrets. Frankly, all I hold are confidences and handshakes with people as to information that I keep private. And I would do that with anybody. If I promise somebody I won't say something, I won't say it.
Right. Yeah.
The accusations that come against not just me, but about anybody in this field that somehow that our hands are tied, is just ridiculous. Anybody who knows me knows that I just, it has to be a very good national security reason why I would agree to holding certain things in confidence. I mean, certainly if I had I'd learned something under TS, it stays secret, no matter what it is. It could be the color of a rose. It doesn't matter. I would keep it secret. But I think, yeah, you just got to be careful. I mean, I think in the early days, TTSA, tried this with the so-called bismuth material,
right,
and the magnesium bismuth material, and the piece disappeared into the DOE for a while. It was returned eventually. It took some arm twisting, I understand, to get the report back out from them. I looked over the report. It was pretty good in terms of some of the basic science, but it missed a few things, or it, I don't know, kind of glossed over a few things. And I've shown publicly, even very recently, some more work that we've been doing on it. That shows that there's something interesting there. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's Hal Puthoff's waveguide or not, but I certainly know it's interesting. And I've got a couple of guys over in the physics department here in applied physics who've looked at it with techniques that I didn't even know existed that show that there's just something interesting going on.
Amazing.
It does absorb in exactly the frequency that Hal suggested it would, the terahertz frequency. Now, whether anything would, or whether that's just some artifact, is yet to be determined. It doesn't prove or disprove anything that Hal has said in the past.
Well, let's go back to Arrow, because what I want to move into is the whole disclosure issue. So I think what is confusing about Arrow, and you kind of touched on that a bit, you have Arrow saying there's sort of nothing going on here, yet there are these silver orbs floating around. Then you have Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick going out after he left and kind of insulting Congress and doing some other things. Same thing with Tim Phillips disparaging whistleblowers. And then I even get an invitation on LinkedIn to apply for a job with Arrow, with the Pentagon's Arrow office. And the written job requirement that they sent me, actually it wasn't in the DM that I got from the recruiter, it was on their website, but the job requirement, or three of the job requirements on this position that they asked me to apply for were information operations, deception activities, and I've got a disinformation, something like that. It was like three things that were clearly psychological warfare things that you would say, okay, why would they want to hire somebody that has a background in sowing disinformation? And it leads me to
let me play devil's advocate to that. Please. Just for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they were looking for somebody who could recognize deception and disinformation. Not that they wanted you to practice it. Just, to be fair.
Sure, yeah.
Now, I don't think that's the case personally, but just, one of the things I run around screaming all the time is, always make sure you offer the alternative explanation, and all options should be on the table. So to me, that just occurred to me that, maybe it was not about them wanting you to be such a thing, but they were looking for somebody who could recognize such a thing.
Of course, yeah. And that was actually one of my very first things that I thought. And I spoke to somebody who was a Pentagon program manager who actually used deception operations in a SAP that this individual ran. And he looked at it and he's like, yeah, they were not altruistic reasons, but it is a fair point that you bring up. But it leads to this. If you back up and you look at all of the confusing messaging out of Arrow and what former Arrow leadership has said once they've exited, it leads me to this question: can we trust the government to be transparent on UAP, or do we need to take things into our own hands?
Well, I think after 80 years, somebody should have learned a lesson. And I think we're ever hopeful. And I think that, let's put it this way, maybe this sounds so conspiratorial, maybe it's allowed to be so near as an opportunity and then snatched away as a way to demoralize.
Could be.
I don't know. I just don't know. But it comes back again and again to this issue of when I don't get, let's say, what I want, scientifically at least, out of the techniques that are available to me today, I invent a way around it. And so I think you have seen any of a number of organizations pop up with credible funding and credible abilities to go out and do the research themselves. I actually wanted to reach out to somebody who has been posting quite a bit and get his permission to mention him, but since I forgot to do that, I won't. But lots of just interesting videos that are popping up from credible people. And certainly there's the work of Avi Loeb and the Galileo Project. That probably is the most extensive and properly run academic effort that I've seen. Almost all run through a volunteer operation within, and of course the instruments, etc., are bought by charitable donations, and it's a considerable amount of money and effort. And so, I think we just plug along. But then there's Beatrice, right? Who, she didn't need to invent anything. She went back to data that had already been collected and showed that there was something interesting there. There was evidence. And so, that's something you can't scrub. Now, you can question whether the statistics are sufficient to state anything or whether there are alternative explanations, but she got it done right. She published it in a peer-reviewed Nature journal. It wasn't in Nature, it was in one of the many little family of journals that are all quite credible. And then there's, of course, there's the work we did with Jacques. There's work of Robert Powell and Matt. I always say his name wrong.
I got to mess it up, yeah.
Matt Sigdalis. And I apologize, Matt. He admitted to me that lots of people spell his name wrong. We had a conversation just the other week. They've published papers. Kevin Newth has published peer-reviewed papers. So this notion that you can't get it into a peer-reviewed journal is just wrong.
Right.
It's always about the framing. I mean, I published in Science, Nature, Cell, at least in my area, of biology. Those are the holy trinity that people aim for, and it's always about the framing, because it needs to tell a story. It needs to be steeped in the kinds of methodologies that are acceptable in the field at the time. And it needs to move the field forward, either because you're showing a new method, or it's a principle that you're teaching, or it's an instance of a principle, at least in biology. So it's sort of like, this is how this particular kinase works, or this is how kinases work globally, or this is how now more recently circular RNA is important in cancer, or extravasomes, things that are basically secreted from cells. Things that are all that you can see the Nobel Prizes coming from this kind of work, because somebody noticed data off the curve, and it was evidence that something interesting was going on. And so, to me, that's it's like, okay, so let's refocus. Constantly, you're always having to refocus. Let's refocus on what is the data that can be collected. What are the methods, statistical and otherwise, that we should be using to collate anecdotes? And probably at least most of the feedback I've gotten from, let's call it mainstream statisticians, is that the Bayesian approach, is the right way, which is to use priors and et cetera. I mean, I published a paper in Science using Bayesian inference for signaling diagrams. It was a full article in Science years ago. So it's like, I know of what I speak. And so I had never thought of using it, but this colleague said, hey, I could do this. So I think there are ways to do it, but again, it needs money. So if Arrow wants to give me money to hire a couple of statisticians to look at the databases that are already out there, as long as I'm allowed to publish it, I take it.
Sure. Do you think, let's say that we do not have government disclosure, but let's say Avi finds something, or Soul Foundation finds something. Do you think that the world will believe it if it's not coming from the White House, whatever that discovery might be?
I mean, sure. I mean, it's, nobody disbelieved Beatrice's paper. They might quibble with the, interpretation or some of the statistical analysis around nuclear weapons use, but none of the quibbles I heard were statistically sound. And Beatrice was able to bat them away quite effectively. Did it change the narrative that much? No. but it's yet another cornerstone put in place. That what it does is it brings in other people. There was a couple of big-time astronomers who were, let's just say, serious skeptics, not pseudo-skeptics, serious skeptics, who actually came out publicly and said, wow, this is interesting. And that's all I've ever wanted, is just, as I always say, I just want another scientist to say the data is interesting.
Right.
It doesn't mean that they're going to follow up on it, but at least if I frame it as evidence for something, then it's then that's a step in the right direction. So to say that let's go back to Arrow, that there is no credible evidence for extraterrestrials, I mean, that just flies in the face of their own results.
Right, right.
There's no evidence that proves it conclusively, at least what they've let us know. But they're absolutely wrong in the terminology that they used. And if that were a paper that they had submitted, that they would submit to a journal, it wouldn't even make it past the editor's desk. It wouldn't even make it past the editor's assistant's desk.
Okay.
So, come on, guys.
Yeah,
Step up.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to take a little bit of a break here. So we'll get back to Dr. Nolan here in a second. But folks, over half of you watching right now are not subscribers. So please hit the subscribe button and thumbs up button and leave a comment. Believe it or not, those little things are the signals that YouTube uses to decide whether they're going to promote our show to other people. And we do not have sponsors, so we are completely reliant on all of you at home to pay for the studio space, all of that sort of thing. You can support us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/The Good Trouble Show. Also, super chats are open. I've been seeing here we've had lots of generous donations for the super chats. All of that financial support allows us to bring you great guests like we have today with this gentleman, Dr. Garry Nolan, who we are so happy to be here and help us kick off 2026. Now, I don't know about everyone at home watching, but I've often wondered what Dr. Nolan is like outside of science and UAP, and what better way to show the audience that than a little slideshow of some of your photos from back in the day. So, what do you say? What do you think? Are we good to do that?
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool. So, so we'll pop some stuff up, and so what are we looking at there?
Well, that's me at Cornell in my fraternity room with a couple of my fraternity brothers at the time. So yeah, the beard. I actually lost the beard for quite a while.
Okay.
And then I regrew it sometime later.
All right.
But that was actually my room.
Oh, so there we have the beardless Garry Nolan.
Right. So that's me. I don't know when it was at Stanford as a grad student. Mm-hmm. Where was I? I'm trying to look at the back. I don't know where I was. I always have that smirk on my face, so I don't know what I was doing.
That's what we love about you. All right. Wow, that's you're quite dapper there.
So that was actually at Rockefeller University. So my boss, David Baltimore, had been at MIT when I first joined his lab. And then we moved to Rockefeller when he became the president of Rockefeller University. He later became the president of Caltech University. And this was a party at his house. So it was pretty fun. I have a funny quick story to tell about
please.
David. So David was amazing. I mean, truly one of the most amazing scientists I've ever known, and such a kind and gentle man. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And he had multiple projects in the lab. He had 30 postdocs that focused on his various projects. And so for his birthday, I went down to the Village in New York City, because this was in Rockefeller, and I bought cat of nine tails,
Okay.
from a leather store. And I put the names of each of the 9 projects on the end of it and with a little tag. And I was really worried about what he would think about that, giving it to him as a gift for his birthday. But he just laughed out loud and he said, "I'm putting this next to my Nobel."
I love that. Okay, let's. Oh, actually, I want to ask you: did you tie that bow tie, or was that a clip-on?
No, I tied that. No, I learned how to tie a bow tie. Yeah.
I certainly do not. My hat is off to you for that. Okay, so this is what?
This is back to Cornell. That's ROTC. That's me in the back far. Yeah, that's me.
On the right.
On the right there, yeah.
Amazing. Okay, doing a little collegial, reading there in college?
This is actually MIT. This was when we were at MIT, and that was my apartment. I think I recognized that book. I think that's a. I have to go back and look. I think I still have it. It had nothing to do with UAP. I think it had to do with evolution.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right. Let's say that's what Cornell
that's back to
there.
Cornell.
Okay.
So that was me. That was me, like removing at least the beard and having that was my porn stash days.
All right. What are we in the 80s or not? No, probably 90s there, right?
This is us. I think late grad school. This is at my parents' house.
Ah. Okay. Well, that's definitely 90s, I'd say.
That's me at a friend's wedding in Hawaii. And actually, the guy on the left was one of my best friends in college. He was not at Cornell. He was over at Ithaca, and that was his girlfriend there. So,
wow, you found proof.
I finally found one.
Yeah,
there was a small cancer meeting in upstate here in Marin at a winery, and this was an art exhibit that the winery owner had, next to the drinking room. And so, of course, I had to have a picture of it with me in it. I thought it was hilarious.
All right, now you were working for the city animal control there, I see. Were you like a dog catcher? Is that what was going on?
That's a big party on a ship that was it was a gay cruise. I'm quite openly out, and that was me with a bunch of friends. And the evening was the jungle. And so we were supposedly animal control. I had somewhere lost my hat, so I didn't have my animal control hat.
Did you have a dog catcher net with you?
We did actually have nets for a while, but they were just a little too
much
cumbersome on the dance floor. That's me at another party. This one was actually out of the Mediterranean. The first one was in the Caribbean. That's me at on another ship. At a party with actually the same group of friends. We traveled together quite a bit. It was a lot of fun.
Love that. And who is that handsome man with you there?
That's my husband, Tim. And this was actually at the hotel, the Royal Stockholm Hotel, for the Nobel ceremony for my friend Jim Allison. And this was one of the pre-Nobel parties we were getting ready to go out to. The actual parties themselves required full-on tux. There was an after party. We weren't allowed to go to the big party with the king and queen.
Okay.
That was just for immediate family. But Jim had invited about 100 guests, which was more than anybody else had invited because he's so loved in the community. And so anyway, that was that. That's me in Antarctica. We had climbed up a small glacier. This was Tim and I. And that bay below was absolutely gorgeous, and we later kayaked around it. And you can see in the background some of the glaciers.
Yeah,
and they were constantly what they call calving off into the water. They warned us many times, don't get close to the glacier sides because you might find yourself, under a wall of ice,
Yeah,
or the wave.
oh yeah, both wouldn't be good. That is a fancy looking machine. What is that?
That's the Cytov. That was one of the companies that we eventually sold, actually, for a modest fee.
Wow. All right.
And it was co-developed with this guy at the University of Toronto, Scott Tanner,
Wow.
and a few others.
That's probably about the size of Arrow's budget, I'm imagining.
Monthly.
they're
To hire disinformers, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I don't come cheap. That's for sure.
But this instrument was an outgrowth of really work that I had done in Lenin Lee Herzenberg's lab. They had invented, let's call it the precursor to this instrument that had already revolutionized immunology at the single cell level. It had limitations in the numbers of parameters that it could measure at a time. And this instrument allowed us to leap forward in terms of the numbers of parameters. And so the work that came from this, we eventually published in Science, and it brought in so much data that we had to develop whole new algorithms to what's called de-dimensionalize high parameter, high dimensional data into something that was, mortally understandable. And so it led to something called pseudotime and novel kinds of clustering techniques that I mostly worked with a colleague by the name of Donna Pierre, who is the head of bioinformatics now at Sloan Kettering. She had been in George Church's lab, if anybody knows him. George is a colleague. I don't see him often, but he has started more companies than anybody I know. But one of them is let's resurrect the Siberian mammoth, right, and other animals. So he's quite a visionary.
Yeah,
but Donna had trained with him, and she's she's just an extraordinary woman.
Okay, well, just make sure you rewatch Jurassic Park. Things didn't go too well on that. All right, let's see. This is what, a death ray that you're working on there?
This is, let's call it the next generation of an imaging device that had been developed by two former postdocs in my lab, Sean Bendel and Mike Angelo. We had published the first version of it, let's say, in, I think it was Nature Medicine. And then when they left my lab and started their own labs at Stanford, independent of mine, they built this as a way to study tumors using the same kind of technology as that orange thing that you just saw.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Using metal-tagged isotopes. Not radioactive, but metal-tagged antibodies. So we developed a chemistry that allowed us to attach them to antibodies. Antibodies recognize the proteins or RNA, and they had this bright idea that rather than shooting the cells one at a time into a 7,500 degree Kelvin flame, that they would shoot a beam of ions at the sample to read tumors. And so this was the start of, let's call it, the tumor immunology solid state work that my lab had done. So when people say Garry doesn't know anything about metals and isotopes and how to do them, okay, well, there you go.
There you go. Yeah, and you do clearly understand the scientific method.
I understand, I think.
Yeah, I kind of figured.
Always willing to learn more.
Of course, yeah.
Just not from certain people.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Okay, let's see. Got one more picture here. What the fuck is that?
Oh God, that's a friend.
Were you in GQ?
In San Francisco. That's where did you get that one? So that was, we were about to go swimming. That was in San Francisco Bay. I wish I still looked like that.
I certainly don't. And let's see, last one. I think I love this shirt. May not be as normal as I first appear.
Yeah, that was probably, let's see, that was the house. I'd already gotten tenure. It was up in San Francisco. That was my house in San Francisco.
Love that. Yeah. Well, anyway, I appreciate you. Let's see here. Go back to the right thing. Okay. I appreciate you showing these photos. So I want to talk a bit about the whole disinformation thing. Like you said, the Wall Street Journal reached out to you, and what do we do to fight that kind of stuff? These mainstream media articles that are clearly meant to debunk and discourage Congress from looking into UAP.
Well, I think the first thing you do is look at the history of the writer. If they have no history, then maybe you talk to them. But you do try to get them to tell you what it is that the article is going to be about. But one of the things I found is that they can tell you whatever they want, but then they'll end up doing whatever they want with what you say. And what you say is not always context in the way that you meant it. I mean, I've been recontexted many, many times. So when President Trump says fake news, I understand what he means. And I thoroughly agree with when he says that information can be slanted. And so it's, mainstream media is looking for opinions. They're unlike in the sciences where your opinion at the end of the article is about what you think the data means. Still has to be supported by the data, which has to have the methods. And so, unfortunately, that's just not how the news operates. And I don't know if we're ever going to get around that. Mm-hmm. So at this point, my leanings are just don't talk to them.
Right.
I don't see what any additional value it is to put another piece out about this matter when all that you're going to do is give somebody else who doesn't have any credibility equal standing as yourself because they're mentioned in the article. So I can say blah, 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 in the Wall Street Journal, and then they'll say, but this garage experimenter says otherwise.
Right. Yeah, and I want to talk about that now. So I understand you were contacted by the folks at CBS News regarding this appearance on the program 48 Hours. Tell us a bit about what happened with that.
Well, so I was intrigued at the beginning because she was very nice in her original ask in the email. So I called them up and I said, well, what's this about? And they said, well, we want to have a debate. And like red flags went up. And I said, a debate about what? And they said about UAP. And I said, well, what about them? And he says, I said, well, and with whom? And she said, Mick West. And I'm like, are you guys, come on. No, I said right away. And she said, oh, he said you'd say that. I said, well, I said, at least he's right about something.
Yeah, right.
So, look, I appreciate, I am a skeptic. I don't need to sit across from a debunker who claims to be a skeptic. Let's go back a little bit, almost 15 years now, when the Atacama mummy thing came out and people said that I had debunked it as an alien. That actually got me mad because I didn't enter the conversation with Stephen Greer to purposefully debunk anything. I entered it to understand it. And I even remember a couple of times driving around in the car when some of the initial data was coming in. I didn't understand what the genetic sequences meant, thinking this might be real. But then, the scientist in the back of my head said, you better go check this out before you say anything. Of course, I sent emails updating Stephen as to where my thought process was. So I went and got the necessary experts, which is what you do as a scientist. We're not all good at everything.
Sure.
So you bring in additional people who said, well, no, here's the reason why this can't be, unassignable or is like novel genomic, because the data is, collected from degraded material, and this can happen, and you need this many overreads to be able to be sure, et cetera, et cetera. And so, when the paper finally came out and people were calling me saying I was a debunker, it actually angered me because I didn't set out to prove or disprove anything. And I would love if somebody were to go back and redo it and say, hey, Garry, you're wrong. Here's what you missed. I would love that. But for now, 4 Stanford professors, 15-ish postdocs and grad students, a very large diagnostics company, Roche Diagnostics, to whom I had sold the genomics technology that allowed to do some of the analysis, and it became Roche's, the core bioinformatics team, had all worked on it together, and put our best efforts with the data that we had and the material that we had, and came to a reason, and just basically put the data out. And if you read the paper, you read it's full of caveats. I mean, but what we could say was, there's nothing that says that this is anything other than human, and here are some mutations that might explain how it looks, what it looks like. End of story.
Right.
But of course, the newspapers were all Stanford scientist sequences alien baby.
Of course, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you turned down this CBS thing, and I think there's probably a very high probability that Mick West is watching this show right now. He was in the chat for the last one.
I wish you well, Mick. Find someone. Well, I have said, why don't you go on with Susan Gerbich, and you can have a conversation with Susan about all the wiki articles that you've edited, or that she edits, or that Guerrilla Skeptics edit, and why they do it. And I mean, that would be fascinating. I would watch that.
Of course. Are there any conditions that you would debate Mick West on stage? If Mick's watching right now and you were to talk to Mick, what would the deal look like? What would you say, Mick, you got to do this for me to do this thing?
Well, I think I would have to have the Guerrilla Skeptics delete all of their editing accounts, openly admit what they've been doing, admit who their funders are. Mick should admit who his funders are.
Exactly.
I mean, they have a pretty decent budget. Maybe they should donate to a whistleblowers charity. A significant amount, $1 or $2 million.
Yeah.
I think would be good.
Drop in the bucket.
Oh, publish a peer-reviewed paper in a tier 1 journal on any of the work that you've done. Gimbal. You suppose you've done a lot of work on Gimbal.
Supposedly.
I think Marek should be the one of the reviewers. Or publish it with Marek. See if you could put a paper together with him. Collaborate rather than collude against. I think that's what it is. I mean, it's funny because I basically put this in a Twitter post somewhere about how I think the whole Guerrilla Skeptics thing is unethical, and made a number of other sort of statements about what I thought would be appropriate. And Mick did ask in the thread somewhere, well, I'll have a conversation with you. I said, because I only have a conversation. But he conveniently left out all the other terms that I done, which seems to be his MO.
Yes.
Which is, I'm going to pick the thing that I want to talk about, but I'm going to forget about all the data that is necessary for the contextualization. And so it's just not someone, whether he's doing it purposefully or not, it just doesn't matter. It's not I don't need to have a conversation with him. He needs me. I don't need him.
Yeah.
So they're desperate. It's like, why?
Yeah.
To why don't you just publish a whole bunch of things that you've already done? Point to rename Metabunk.
What would you name it?
Skeptics Folly. I don't know. I would just, yes.
Yeah. Hey, that works.
It's because the term debunking implies you're coming to the table with a preordained conclusion. That's not what a skeptic is. I'm my own skeptic. I offered the CBS person, I said, put me on stage with another scientist and we could play devil's advocate against each other. I'm more than happy to take the side of this is all rubbish and argue that against somebody who wants to say that the data is real. Because I can do that. Mm-hmm. I do it every day in my own lab. I just did it with you with that,
job post
thing. I can be my own skeptic. I don't need to. People like that can't teach me how to question my own thought processes.
Yeah, well, he could probably teach you how to make a pretty badass balsa wood model. I'll give it.
I'm sure. I love him. Look, it's play acting on Twitter. I'm glad that there's a voice out there like him, because frankly, if that's the best there is, then I think the narrative has changed.
I completely agree. That goes back to where we started on the program. So I know we only have you, I think, for like 15 more minutes. We have a just boatload of questions. I'd like to try and get through as many as we can from the audience. This is from Cool Guy. Thank you very much for the super chat. If the NHI would have monitored alien reproduction vehicles research, just like nukes, to prevent blowing up the planet, is the safety argument against disclosure and for amnesty really valid?
It's interesting, and I think that one through what the meaning is. So is the meaning? I know the person's not there to answer this. Is the meaning that if we have already reverse engineered something, mm-hmm. Is the threat narrative still operable? Was that what it?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's how I would interpret that.
Well, I think it's less operable, but just because I figured out what a wheel is and how to make a bicycle doesn't mean I have a super duper Honda motorbike, mm-hmm. right? Figuring out the basics of something, all it says is one of the things that I've been talking about openly is that if there is something here, it is very likely it's been here a very long time. Because you don't just show up flying around in stuff like what people allege overnight. You probably developed it quite a long time ago.
Right.
Before likely humans had even crawled out of the caves. And so I don't think if something like this is real, I don't think we're a real threat to them, but they probably have enough foresight to realize that we might be a threat to somebody. Let's say there's another civilization in a star system 100 or 200 light years away that isn't 100 million years old, is maybe only a few tens of thousand years beyond us. But the elders might know that people like us will soon be able to get 100 light years away or 200 or whatever. And so we might become a threat to other civilizations that are perhaps at near parity with us or behind us. And so maybe they want to keep an eye on us. I'm just making stuff up as I go along.
Yeah.
There's no truth to this. It's just you have to war game out these ideas,
Right.
and to try to figure out, well, what might be the reasoning.
Sure.
I frankly don't think, even if the government confirmed that there was something here, that we would ever know what the true intent is, and we can barely understand what other humans' intents are.
Yeah.
Never mind alien intent.
Yeah, that's true. Orange Man comes to mind. Okay, this is from Adam Martinez. Thank you very much for the super chat. How significant could the data collected by Skywatcher be to the disclosure movement, given your insider knowledge of their operations, and how close are they to releasing that data?
I just shouldn't say anything. It's not because there's like something imminent. I just think that there is some decent preliminary data. We've learned a lot of things about how data needs to be collected, and that's really as far as I'm going to go.
Understood. Okay. All right, next one, actually, just compliments, not just a compliment. It's from the great science Bob McGuire. This is a needed interview. Thanks, Matt and Gary. Thank you, Bob, for the super chat. Let's see here, going back through. From Gene Sticko, disclosure won't come from stories or demands. It will come when we act like organized community applying science so publicly and persistently that the government can no longer ignore that. I think it's a really astute
That's
point.
exactly, I mean, thank you. Yes, that sums it up perfectly. I mean, look, we can't even agree that, I mean, I don't know if climate change is the right word or whatever. The climate is changing. The climate always changes. That's certainly true. Whether it's anthropogenic, I mean, the correlation is certainly there, and we know CO2, traps heat, and there's a clear line going on. And whether humans did it or not is irrelevant to the fact that something is happening. So but people just want to get in arguments about that. Mm-hmm. So it's, and people still think the Earth is flat. So I don't know what to do about that except be certain of your own data and your own proof. I mean, we would like daddy and mommy government to come out and validate it, but if daddy and mommy government, and I'm not taking any sides here. I mean, I'm recently actually registered now as an independent. Changed my party affiliation. If daddy and mommy government are going to change every 4 years how they approach the world and how they approach truths, then waiting for the government to say one thing this administration is only going to change next administration. I mean, of course, coming out and saying, "Oh, aliens are real," it's not like you can take that back. Mm-hmm. I think it's just got to come locally. But I mean, again, there's an incredible amount of evidence. And anybody says there's no evidence is just doesn't understand science.
Right.
There's not proof that the kind. But then you have to ask, what is your standard of proof? I said this last night on Twitter. I was busy running some AI projects, and while they were running, I was messing around on Twitter late into the night. It has met my standard of this is really interesting. Mm-hmm. It has not met my standard of proof. But if it were a research grant and I was writing something about, let's say, cancer, I have far less evidence for some of the things that I do in the grants than the evidence is already sitting out there about UAP. But because people believe in signaling biology and cancer and all of the rest, that the preliminary data that I have fits into the mold of what people already understand about the system. So they say, okay, yeah, this is a credible idea. Let's go ahead and do it. And so if anything needs to happen, if it ever does, is, for the NSF or NASA or somebody or an independent foundation of considerable means to come forward and say, hey, we're going to fund this independently. And then hopefully it would make it to the level of a national laboratory, where you could have some kind of at least reasonably transparent analysis of, either the flotsam and jetsam that seems to drop off some of these things that I have access to, public materials, or if somebody could release claimed materials. I mean, I've been very open about this.
Sure.
It's like, if there's stuff that's available and there's technology to be learned, that's what I want. I frankly could almost care less about what they are and what their intent is, the Brothers of Light or Galactic Love, etc. I mean, sure, great if that's the case. I'm interested in what they do. I'm not a technologist. I'm a tinkerer, right? Because I see it as being able to help mankind. Yes, it will be used for war, at some level, or at least used as a defense,
of course,
or a threat. But I'm interested in progress.
Yeah.
And so I don't like the idea that progress might be hindered because something is held back.
I would completely agree with that. Here's another really interesting question from Mad Ski 2595. Question to Garry: would you support disclosure if the whole truth would cause immediate havoc around the world? If not, would you support a partial disclosure that confirms intelligent alien visitors? So if everything were to go to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah. I don't want anybody hurt. I just don't want anybody hurt at all. I mean, that's just the end of the story. If it meant absolute social disruption, no. Now, I mean, I think there's plenty of partial truths that society can handle. So, yeah, certainly the latter.
Okay, this is from...
But Hal Puthoff and others were on a committee, and the RAND Corporation has put out very similar studies, very detailed over the decades, which at various points in time, supposedly having had access to the real data, have said that whatever is known right now shouldn't be let out. So I have to trust, I despite some of the things I say, I do actually trust the government mostly to do the right thing. I have to trust at some level. That decisions are being made in the right way. But what I don't like is that if there is a decision that it shouldn't be released, that people should be hurt to prevent the information.
Yeah.
Right? Or like what happened with David Grush and having his medical records released by that scoundrel of a reporter, who was then found out later, he openly admitted stupidly on a TV show that CIA operatives had given him the information.
Yeah.
And is now the subject of a court case.
Yeah. I hope he gets his ass suit off. This is another question from Mississippian. Has Dr. Garry Nolan tried psionics?
Personally, no. I mean, I've sat in my backyard sometimes and looked in the sky and said, okay, guys, are you guys going to show up for me? But I can't concentrate more than 30 seconds on that. I mean, I did actually once. There was a guy who somebody told me about who lived way up here in the Santa Cruz Mountains. He used to be a doctor at Stanford who claimed interactions. And I drove up to his place, which was way up in the woods in the Sequoia forest in the woods and down this windy road. And we sat in his backyard, and he claimed that he was interacting with something on another place. I did see a couple of things move in strange ways. And I said, well, what are you interacting with? And he said, well, I'm interacting with this alien or whatever that lives by itself off in a hut. And I said, it sounds like you're interacting with yourself. I mean, you live out here in the middle of nowhere. So I don't know. I mean, that was fun. That was interesting. Yeah. But no, I haven't done so. I've been present when people have tried it. I've seen the commotion, but I didn't see anything personally. So it's kind of going back to what John Mack said, is that people experience and or see things that I believe that they experienced or saw it. I mean, look, I've also been very open. I saw things when I was a kid. I mean, quite clearly. And that motivates my conviction, but it's not a proof I can hand to somebody else.
Right.
So, it's just another story. But, I know what I saw. Isn't that the title of a movie? That one about the Phoenix Lights?
I think so. Oh, yeah, exactly.
I know what I saw, and so maybe, maybe that's what's necessary. Maybe they need to fly over again and fly over Mick West's house and
drop a few seagulls from the helicopter.
Didn't Mick say that he wasn't part of his thing that he was scared of some, like, was it ghosts or something?
I think he had like hallucinations as a kid, of things crawling up the wall. Yeah, something's going on there.
Okay. Well, no, and that's serious and that's real, and I don't discount it, and I don't think that's a negative whatsoever.
No.
I mean, we all have traumas, but I don't think that we should pass the trauma on by traumatizing other people's to make ourselves feel better about it. I mean, putting somebody else down to make yourself feel better is just passing on historical violence to me.
I'm with you on that. Okay, here, just a couple more. We know we have just a few more minutes with you. Thank you, Matt and Dr. Nolan. This is from the guy for Tato. Thank you for the super chat. Question: how can society instigate scientific thinking on the layman's level and promote a healthy factual curiosity?
Well, I think, frankly, one of the best data-driven books that I've read is Swords and Powell's book, UFOs and Government. It's just chock-a-block with data and instances. And I've given it, or pointed many of my colleagues at it, and those who've read it and said they've read it, it says, wow, I didn't even know that this kind of data existed. And so, I mean, certainly nobody's going to read, it's a tome. But it's so well researched and so well done. You need sort of I hate to use the thing, a ChatGPT version of it. You need a lighter version of that can be gotten out, that is, more timely. And it can still have all of the older stories, but it needs to be sort of repackaged into the media expectations of today. But we have some great producers and cinematographers in the way of, frankly, Spielberg and his many organizations that do this regularly. I mean, they're a little bit more entertainment, obviously. But then you have Dan Farrah's incredible work, James Fox, and several others. And I apologize, I've been on your things, and I'm just terrible at names.
Me too.
I think that we have people, and it's just, you just need to have the drumbeat. And if anything, Dan's movie caught the world by surprise, and even Netflix. So you can bet, because you live in Hollywood, you know what it's like.
Yeah.
A win causes clones to happen. And so, they know that it sells. CBS knows it sells. It's why they're called me up.
Yeah, no, I completely...
And I wish them well. I really do. I mean, I'm not disparaging them at all. I'm just saying that's not the approach and the venue within which I want to talk about this kind of stuff.
I'm with you on that. Well, Dr. Nolan, thank you so much for joining us. How can folks at home follow your work and support the Soul Foundation?
Well, you can go to the Soul Foundation website, certainly, and there are donations there. I've personally donated quite a bit of money myself to the Soul Foundation. So people who say that I'm making money on this, if they knew how much money I've spent on it, they'd say otherwise. People think that I get money for speaking tours. I've never been paid a penny about this thing, even for my own cancer research. I might get a $100 check from the graduate students at Harvard to pay for my meal, and they'll pay for my flight. That's about it.
Right.
So certainly that. I'll say it. If there's anybody out there who is interested in supporting cancer research, you can donate to Stanford and my laboratory, and we'll put it to very good use around artificial intelligence. If you want to donate to Stanford for my UAP research, there is a fund set up, and I've had about almost $1.2 million donated to my lab for the work that I've done for UAP.
Wow, amazing.
And Stanford's quite open to it. But donating for my cancer research means I have to write fewer grants, so I can maybe spend more time on UAP.
There you go. Hey, it's a win-win. I love that. Mm-hmm. Well, Garry, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for helping us kick off our premiere episode on here in 2026. Thank you for doing all of the work you do to really make this world a better place. And
thank you, Matt. I mean, I really love
act.
Following you. And again, thank you for sort of being the canary in the coal mine, let's call it that, for some of the efforts recently, especially. But I think your dedication is momentous.
I appreciate that. That you made my day. I really appreciate that. I'm speechless. Well, Garry, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great weekend, and hopefully I'll maybe making it up to your neck of the woods here in a couple weeks, and we can meet for lunch or whatever.
That'd be great.
Yeah, awesome.
Wonderful.
Okay, Garry Nolan, ladies and gentlemen. What a fantastic. Garry, much like Avi, is a scientist that walks the walk, and he has this scientific curiosity that, frankly, a large portion of the scientific community just does not have. He looks for the outliers in data. He looks for the things that are not expected, and that piques his curiosity. And that, in my opinion, and I'm not a scientist, like you said, I wasn't the best college student, but we need more people like that are frankly brave. They have courage to stand up to their academic colleagues who might laugh, or administrations at a university. That's real courage. Speaking your truth, not giving a damn what other people say about you. And I venture to guess that has served Dr. Nolan, very well in his life, and that is probably why he has been so wildly successful. That fearlessness that he has, and I remember when we had Dr. Avi Loeb, he made some comment that he looks at science in the same way that, with the same level of curiosity as he looked at life as a young kid, when you don't have all of this baggage that the media tries to put on you, or other debunkers, people that are trying to really interfere with people's efforts to find the truth. And really, that at the end of the day, that's what this is about. We're not saying, at least I know I'm not saying, that we know where this stuff is from, or what it is, or what it wants. We're walking into this and letting the data lead us where it leads us, rather than walking into something with a sort of predetermined conclusion, and I think Dr. Nolan really kind of touched on that, the difference between being a healthy skeptic versus being a debunker. And and I completely agree and support Dr. Nolan's decision not to participate in this CBS show. I know that there were other people that were approached by CBS with this thing. And actually, I had heard that Mick and these debunkers were up to something with a major news network. It was probably around 6 to 9 months ago, although at the time I didn't have the details. But but this was going on, and I think that it's not a fair debate when you are debating with someone that is going to leave out evidence or misrepresent evidence, all for the purpose seemingly to come to a particular conclusion. It's like gaming the system. And if I didn't know anything about the UAP topic, I would certainly trust Dr. Garry Nolan over Mick West or some of these other folks, because it'd be clear to me that Dr. Nolan is all about the data. He is not about an agenda or forcing a conclusion without the scientific evidence to back it up. He's all about the data and going where the data leads, rather than operating from an agenda, which is, I think, where all of these debunkers, particularly Mick West, operates from, which is why, in my opinion, you really can't trust much of what comes out of these folks. But I want to talk about something else here, and this is really pretty serious. The UAP Disclosure Act, which was, I think, the third time around that this was attempted to get pushed through or become federal law in the National Defense Authorization Act, we know that once again it failed. This act, which from a cost perspective was virtually minimal compared to some of the other programs that legislation pays for, it was absolutely minuscule. All this thing was about was transparency on the UAP issue with the American public, to the extent that it did not harm national security. It used the phrase non-human intelligence, I think like 20 something times. And one of the other important elements of it was it had this eminent domain clause that mandated defense contractors in possession of vehicles of non-human origin or biological materials of non-human origin to be returned back to the government. This got derailed. You had this legislation written by Senator Schumer, Senator Mike Rounds, and Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. So you have to ask yourself, how the hell did that happen? How the hell did this legislation by three of the most powerful United States senators not go through? Now, you've heard me speak on the program extensively, really for the life of the Good Trouble Show, about the UAP gatekeepers. The 50-ish or so senior executive service level people spread throughout different nodes of government who protect the program, protect the legacy program. These are the people that are paying for the disinformation and the debunking and the guerrilla skeptics of the world and the Wall Street Journals of the world. These folks, in conjunction with the intelligence community, are in many ways the bad actors, or at least a sort of a section of it. You know, all organizations are multifaceted. You have factions, so to speak. But these are the folks really from the inception of the security infrastructure and creation of the legacy program that are gatekeeping this. But there are gatekeepers that I have not spoken about on this program. And these gatekeepers are really, in many ways, probably the most important. And these gatekeepers are some of the congressional staffers. Chris Sharp put out an article in the Liberation Times, and actually this was, I had no idea that he had put this article out, but essentially it said that Senator Mitch McConnell's office was the one that killed the National Defense Authorization Act for 2027. And in his article, he stated that Chief of Staff Terry Carmack, Senator Mitch McConnell's Chief of Staff Terry Carmack, was the guy that killed the UAP Disclosure Act. I actually received this same bit of information from a source earlier yesterday, and I'm going to read just let's see if I can find it here. But this is not how you operate a democracy. When you have United States senators that are being undercut by their own staffers, it really makes you wonder, well, who's really running things? I'm going to read this. Sources identify Terry Carmack, McConnell's chief of staff, as the staffer who pressed to have the UAP Disclosure Act stripped from the National Defense Authorization Act after Eric Burleson had submitted it as an amendment. The source said that Mitch really wielded his lease like a cudgel, and the response was, yes, it was true, it was Carmack. Carmack is not the only powerful staffer involved as agents of Senator McConnell. Senator McConnell chairs the powerful Senate Defense Appropriations Subcommittee. His staff director was also involved. So here you have the chief of staff of Senator Mitch McConnell and the staff director killing this stuff. And I have to tell you, I've heard this from other sources as well, that some, not all, some of these congressional staffers, they're the ones that get harassed. They're the ones that are offered sweetheart deals, working for lobbying firms or whoever. They're the ones that the legacy programs approach and say, hey, we need you to kind of tamp this thing down. So my question to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and the Senate Majority Leader, who I'm blanking on his name for a second, what is going on in your house? What is going on Capitol Hill? We would have this UAP Disclosure Act if Speaker Mike Johnson had done his damn job. We would have the UAP Disclosure Act if Mitch McConnell's chief of staff and apparently a staff director, I'm guessing from one of the committees, had not blocked this legislation. Who elected these congressional staffers to make those kinds of decisions? Who elected these congressional staffers to go against the will of the American people? Who elected these congressional staffers to undercut the very people that they are working for? By that, I mean Congress, members of Congress or members of the House and the Senate. It's frankly something that we all need to be asking about. Because if certain congressional staffers are tanking legislation that their bosses actually want, what else are they doing? What else are they blocking? And again, and I have relationships with staffers and members of Congress. This is not an all or nothing thing. Just like anything, you've got good actors and bad actors, and I would say the ones that I've interacted with fall into the good actor category. But this is something that we really need to be talking about. We really need to be talking about why Speaker of the House Mike Johnson did not. Seems to be avoiding this topic, and why the Senate Majority Leader, who is no longer Mitch McConnell, why this guy, his chief of staff, and this staff director killed the legislation. I don't know. I'd never heard of these guys prior to this whole thing, but it's gotta stop. As I've said time and time again, members of Congress, the people that we elect to represent us, cannot do their jobs when they are not given the information, when they are, when they go to the Pentagon or the intelligence community and a door gets slammed in their face. You've heard that from Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna and Eric Burleson and Tim Burchett. The literal backflips that the Pentagon and the intelligence community and the Department of Energy do to keep this from lawmakers, to keep this from the people that we sent to Washington to represent all of us. And then to find out that, at least in Senator Chuck Schumer's orbit, he's got a chief of staff that is killing legislation that three of the most powerful senators in the United States Senate have put forth, have spent their own political capital on. And here you've got this staffer gatekeeping. You've got Senator Mitch McConnell's chief of staff gatekeeping. Terry Carmack. People should look up Terry Carmack. These emails are very easy to find for staffers on Congress. You just need to do a little digging, but these exist in databases on the internet. But people need to be reaching out to these congressional offices. Call Senator Mitch McConnell's office and ask why in the hell Terry Carmack and whatever staff director went in and torpedoed this legislation. Dr. Nolan spoke about this earlier. It's probably well over 75% of the public want to know what the hell's going on, and also what is not going on. But because the government continues to lie to all of you, all of us, we have no idea what's going on. When you have former leadership of the Pentagon's UFO office insulting members of Congress while still on the taxpayer's dime, and you've got another guy, former director of Aero, Tim Phillips, going on podcasts, seemingly spilling classified information, you got to wonder what the hell is going on. And nothing is going to change if we all just lay down and take it. If you want things to change, you got to make the phone calls. You've got to go to protests, make your voice heard, call, email. But you've got these gatekeepers out of the legacy program and the folks that are 3 layers down from, let's say, the Secretary of Defense, the deputy undersecretaries and all of that, who are doing the gatekeeping, the people that are there for life. But then you've also got these members, these certain congressional staffers who are fucking it all up. And it's un-American. We did not send these staffers in there to undermine their bosses. to undermine the people that we voted in, Republicans and Democrats. And trust me, this corruption goes on both sides of the aisle. But we can't just sit back and let this happen again and again and again. Who are these staffers that are blocking this stuff? Why is there not an investigation? Why is there not why is there not a DOJ investigation into what are insider threats in Congress? Because that's what it is. These are insider threats. These are people who are doing damage to this democracy. Where is the Department of Justice? Why is there no Attorney General investigation into which congressional staffers are compromised? Where is that? Where is an investigation from the Department of Justice, from the Attorney General, into which congressional staffers are compromised? Which congressional staffers are taking backroom deals from defense contractors and backroom deals with the legacy program? Why is there no investigation into what is being promised, what carrots are being dangled to these congressional staffers to shut this shit down? Because that's what's going on. Money talks, bullshit walks. And unfortunately, there are some folks operating in Congress who are not doing it for love of God and country. They're doing it for themselves. And whether they're being bribed by the intelligence community or a defense contractor, the legacy program, or whoever, whatever non-government organization, the fact is you've got people in there that are compromised and they are affecting federal law. We can't just let this lie. So when you hear about gatekeeping, gatekeepers, it's not just in the intelligence community. It's not just in the Department of War or Pentagon. It's not just in the legacy program. You've got gatekeeping going on right now in the offices of members of Congress by some of these staffers. It is no wonder that people do not trust the government. It is no wonder that people do not trust the mainstream media. I used to make fun of Trump and his deep state stuff because, well, I'm about to switch to independent. But you know what? Trump was right. There is a deep state. This deep state is all over the damn place. And it undermines things that they do not want to happen. It undermines presidents. I'm not a Trump fan, don't get me wrong there. But it undermines presidents. It undermines legislation. It undermines you at home knowing the truth about things. And these are folks we didn't elect. These are folks that we are operating in congressional offices that are gatekeeping the UAP issue. You know, these members of Congress, they got a lot on their plate. They rely extensively on their staffers. And there are good staffers. And there are staffers that are there for serving the country and doing the right thing. But then you've got this small subset that, unfortunately, is very powerful that is controlling everything. They are part of this machine, this deep state machine, or whatever you want to call it. If you don't want to call it deep state, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but it's a machine, a cancer that continues to grow and grow and grow on this republic. So We need the Senate Majority Leader to do his damn job. We need Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, to do his job. And they need to hold investigations. Haul these staffers in that are dealing with chief of staffs and national security staffers. Put them under polygraph. Find out who is compromised and get them the hell out if they are. You know, this country is in a bad place. And when you have congressional staffers gatekeeping and obfuscating and essentially lying to their bosses, it's no wonder this whole thing is a shit show right now in this country. It's no wonder that Washington is dysfunctional. And again, that dysfunction exists on the left and the right. There is no doubt about that. But the DOJ needs to hold investigations on congressional staffers. Who is compromised? Who is paid off? Who is being promised things? What congressional staffers are interfering with legislation? And in particular, legislation on the UAP issue. We can't keep doing what we're doing here. That is for sure. I want to thank everybody for the super chats, and I hope everyone had a really great holiday. And I know I did. Got a chance to go out of town, visit family. But we're in a new year. This is 2026. Just because we had the Chief of Staff of Senator Mitch McConnell tank the UAP Disclosure Act does not mean we give up. You keep fighting for what's right. They want these gatekeepers in Congress and the Legacy Program and the IC. They want all of you right now that are watching this show to pack up and move on. That is what they want. And you can't give it to them. Then they win. Then we all fail. Then we lose what this country should be. And it is damn time that we get this country back on track and get it back to the America that this needs to be. And all of that starts with rooting out this corruption. And there is no better demonstration of this corruption than in the Legacy UAP program and the tentacles that it has everywhere. There needs to be investigations. People need to be held accountable. There are some people that need to go to federal jail. It needs to happen, because the longer we sit back and let all this keep growing, this cancer on our country, on this republic, at some point you reach a point where there's just no return, no point of return. You have to hold people accountable. And once again, you cannot expect the members of Congress that we elect, they cannot do their job or make the right decisions for this country when you have congressional staffers cutting them off at the knee, like Mitch McConnell's chief of staff. It's unfair. It's unfair to their bosses. It's unfair to all of you watching. It's unfair to every American and every person in the world that wants to know where their true place is in the universe. That decision is not Mitch McConnell's chief of staff to make. It's not. And frankly, Senator Mitch McConnell's chief of staff should be goddamn embarrassed and ashamed for what he did. But, I'm sure this guy's laughing all the way to the bank would be my personal guess. But call Senator Mitch McConnell's office, email his chief of staff, and say, what are you doing? What are you doing, man? This, as Americans, we deserve better. Anyway, folks, if you enjoyed this show, please tell all of your friends about us. Again, hit that like and subscribe. All of that stuff really helps us out. And again, we are completely funded by people like yourself. We have rent to pay for the studio, various other expenses. So we really appreciate when people support us on Patreon or on YouTube by becoming a member of the show, joining us in that way. And the super chats, of course, all of that really helps us out. You know, at the end of the day, the reason I'm doing this, it's not about fame or making a bunch of money, which we certainly aren't doing that. It's about getting to the truth of whatever the hell this is and holding people to account. Because I don't know about you, but I'm tired of being lied to. I'm tired of the government treating us all like a bunch of kids. We are Americans. We can handle difficult things. We rise to the occasion. But when you've got a government that treats all of us like a bunch of children, that's not the country I want to live in. That's not a democracy. That is not a government by the people and for the people. It is an abomination of democracy with what is going on, in particular with the UAP issue. There is no good reason why they cannot tell us to some extent exactly what has been going on. But it's not going to happen as long as we have these congressional staffers and other gatekeepers spread out through government chopping everything off at the knees. It's not going to happen. Anyway, thanks again for joining us. We will have another great show coming up this weekend. And again, tell your friends about us, hit the like and subscribe, all that good stuff. And we certainly appreciate everyone's support. And everyone have a great week. We will see you next week on The Good Trouble Show.